Hey friends, it's Monica Genta and I am rolling out another super great episode of the Teacher Vlog. It is a message that we all need reminded of, that we as teachers are making a huge impact. You need that boost this week. We want to be confident in that. And my buddy Kyle Krieger is delivering 2 tips on how to remind us that that impact is a very real and beautiful thing. He is the co-founder of the Lighthouse Educator Development and also the co-host of an incredible podcast called the LED Podcast. You're gonna wanna check that out. But for right now, let's get listening to my friend Kyle Krieger. What's up? Oh
What's going on, y'all?
Love his energy. I love that he's rocking a stocking cap. He took it off and I said, no, you rock that hat. You got this, man. We are talking today and actually, interestingly, just got done recording a podcast for him and we'll link that up.
Yep.
But you're here on the Teacher Vlog to share 2 tips on just reminding teachers about the kind of impact that they are making. So I love it. I think this is something that we always need reminded of. So why don't you go ahead and throw out your first tip?
So again, super appreciate, you've been on our podcast twice now and getting to connect with you has been really awesome. But my first tip really is to understand that you're always having an impact as a teacher. And when I say always, like every single second of the day. Like I remember when I was being trained and the teacher was kind of this like, well, you can have a positive impact. And it was never really talked about like what's on the other side if you're not having a positive impact. But I've learned, and Wilkie and I, who's my co-founder in Lighthouse Educator Development and the co-host of the podcast, we are now very much of the mind that it's binary. Like you are either having a positive impact on a kid or you are having a negative impact on a kid. There's no real neutral. And when we started talking about that, it hit me like deep in my heart because I had to think back over the 8 years I was in the classroom of all the opportunities that I missed and all the chances that I said to myself, well, like, oh, I can just let this, that idea that, well, some kids are just, you're not going to reach them. But just because you think you might not reach a kid doesn't mean you don't have to be mindful of those interactions.
Yeah.
And I think that on that front too, it kind of takes me into my second tip, which is you have to be mindful of what you're doing all the time because you're always being watched. And that's not like you're always social media being watched, but there's always a kid. I don't care if you're an elementary teacher or a high school teacher. There's always a kid who's looking to see what you're doing. And we were talking on our podcast a little bit ago about how many kids and how many teachers across the country where you might be the only real role model that kid got.
Right.
And in that, not to scare you into like, oh, I have to be so mindful of what I'm doing. We want you to really start thinking about where is the opportunity to build a relationship every time I see a kid. Because I don't know how many kids I had, especially last year teaching in the high school, where they would walk by because we have the same, we're on that same schedule. So you see the same kind of kids that are going, you cross paths with them all the time.
Right.
And the first few times they just like, they look down and they won't even acknowledge you. But that one time you get them to look up and you just kind of smile or you give them a head nod. And then now they're like, okay, like this person sees me. And to some kids, that means the world to just be seen.
Right.
And from there, like, where are the opportunities? When you walk through the cafeteria, do you grab your tray and just beeline? Or do you stop and talk to kids?
Yeah.
Because for me, I always saw too, and this was so funny, is that you don't have to talk to every kid. But every time you're seen talking to kids, that makes you more likable to everyone else.
That's a really good point. No, I love that. Because it's so true. Like especially if we have a larger caseload and you're walking through the cafeteria, there's hundreds of kids in there. And so
right.
That's a great point. I'm talking to this one kid, but every other kid is still listening. Like that's solid.
And you can't underestimate the fact of kids wanting to know you.
Yeah.
Because this is something Wilkie talks about a ton. Like, if you aren't out there, like, building relationships and, more importantly, telling your story of who you are, then kids are going to make up stories for you about who you are.
And you don't want that, because they're really good storytellers.
No. And I've had experience at Wilkie, and I'm sure you've had experience as to where kids you have a negative relationship with will I don't want to say misinterpret, that's the wrong word, but you will be on different, you could have a situation and you're going to see it totally different.
Right.
So one of my favorite things that I would do is, like, a kid that I knew, there was a girl who was, last year, was our manager on our basketball team. I mean, I wouldn't say she's like the most popular girl, but she had a lot of friends. So I knew her, we had a good relationship. So I would intentionally, when she was hanging out with other friends, just go talk to her.
Yeah.
And then they were kind of like, oh, hey, and you do that, and, wherever you can make a connection, and it's something we've heard over and over, like, find a connection point with kids, but you can strive to find a connection point with every kid that you see.
I love it.
And I think once you expand that mindset past, like, just the kids in my classroom to all the kids, it's like you were saying on our podcast just a little bit ago, you're expanding, talking to teachers, and you're expanding your impact by influencing teachers. And I can't tell you how many kids that I've had over the course of my career that I had great relationships and really made an impact, never had them in a class.
Yeah.
Never coached them.
Right.
Never had them in a class. They were kids that I just saw. Like, I remember one, oh my God, it pains me to think that she's like 21 now, and I had her as a 7th grade. Ariel, she was in one of my first classes, or was one of my students in my first school in Houston, and never had her. But, like, when she was in high school, she was on the drill team, so I got invited to all those things, and even still, like, every once in a while I'll get a text like, hey, how you doing, coach? Miss you. It's great. And now she's like an adult, and now it went from, writing scholarship letters to them. Now they're using me as references on jobs. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. But
so
it's those moments that it's hard to really accept the fact that if you're not having a positive impact, you're having a negative impact. It's a hard reality to face, but we live in a world that's pretty binary right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good versus bad. But if you can accept that, and you just, it doesn't, and we talked about this with you too on the podcast, you got to be able to let kids see who you are. Yeah. And I think that's scary, because we were talking about, personalized or meaningful development. You can't meaningfully develop yourself if you don't let people see who you are. Right. And you really can't you can have a positive impact if you kind of stay in your shell and do that, but man.
Yeah.
Because overall, our kids want to be seen, and the best way they know how to be seen is to see how other people let themselves be seen. Right. So the more you can let yourself be seen as a teacher, the more likely your kids are going to let you see who they are.
Kyle is doing incredible things in education. And you know who else is? You need to understand the depth of the impact that you are making for kids. I know it's hard and I know it's tough, especially this time of the year, but I want to remind you that we have your back. If you want to connect with me or Kyle, I guarantee you we will give you the confidence boost that you need to get into your classroom this week and absolutely crush it. Be sure to share and like and subscribe to this vlog, and also don't forget to check out the LED podcast that Kyle and his good friend Wilkie are co-hosting. It is something that will make you have goosebumps and smiles. Telling you, you need that in your life. This week, when you are feeling down and you are feeling like you can't do this, all I want to share with you is one thing. Hey, you got this.